In this video, we look at the subject of what to make of the Odio story in the JFK assassination. This is a micro-controversy of the assassination. It's the last controversy standing, in my view. And we will go through and see what the structure of the controversy is, and whether there's anything to it, or whether it is a blind alley in the attempt to make sense of the JFK assassination. Along the way, we'll make some allusions to the idea of conspiracy in general. On November 22nd, after JFK was assassinated, a Cuban-American living in Miami, Sylvia Odio, heard about the assassination after she returned from lunch to work, and she no sooner heard about it when she fainted. In the hospital where she was taken, she saw Oswald on TV in police custody, as did millions of other Americans. But to Sylvia Odio, he seemed familiar. When her sister Annie came to visit that day, it was Annie that reminded Sylvia that the man was one of three who visited her apartment one night during the last week of September 1963. Sylvia Odio told her sister that that's exactly what she thought, although she couldn't quite place the man. But when Annie confirmed her suspicions, she knew she was correct, that she had seen Oswald before in the company of two other men the last week in September. Odio was part of an organization called JUR, which was an anti-Castro organization, and her father had been imprisoned in Cuba by Castro. She was afraid to get involved. She was afraid to go to the police and tell them what she thought, so they kept quiet. Instead, Odio told a friend about the visit, but it was the friend who contacted the FBI. By the end of November, the FBI was contacting Odio, and over the next 9 months or so, the Warren Commission would try to run theory to ground and try to determine if there was anything to it. This is a controversy that has really never ended. While many conspiracy theories have been debunked successfully, this theory has never been satisfactorily debunked, but nor has it been confirmed. It exists in some kind of limbo land between confirmation and complete discreditation, and so we will explore what to make of this allegation. Odio told her tale to the FBI. She estimated that the visit of the three men, including Oswald, had to be on one of the evenings before October 1st, because Annie was staying with her in her apartment, and Annie moved out on October 1st and got her own apartment. Odio estimated that the visit was probably either September 26th, a Thursday, or September 27th, a Friday, so it could not have been later than October 1st. Annie answered the door when two Cubans and an American appeared at Sylvia's door. The leader of the three was a Cuban calling himself Leopoldo, and he asked to speak to Sylvia. He claimed that he knew her father and asked Sylvia to help their cause. Sylvia said that they knew a great deal about her father, who was then again held prisoner by Castro. She didn't know what to make of these three men. She didn't entirely trust them. She thought perhaps they were pro-Castro spies sent to investigate her. Oftentimes, Castro used spies in the United States to infiltrate the anti-Castro movement. So Sylvia was very suspicious. Odio claims to have observed that the two Cubans appeared greasy and boastful, not very impressive. The American, the gringo, could not speak Spanish and stood by without saying much. She said that he had hair stubble on his face, but he was introduced as Leon Oswald. Odio said that they proceeded to claim to be from New Orleans. This further buttressed her story because, of course, Oswald was in New Orleans in the latter part of September 1963 before he left for Mexico at the very end of the month. The suggestion that this American was introduced as Leon Oswald, of course, also raises the story to a tantalizing degree, if true. What did the men want? Well, they said that since she was a member of JUR herself, they wanted her to translate a petition and send it out to her contacts in the community, presumably for fundraising purposes. Sylvia refused, telling them she was busy, and she later explained this to the FBI, saying that she was suspicious and did not want to get her father in trouble. The meeting ended shortly thereafter, and she saw the three men driving away with Leopoldo behind the wheel. The next day, according to Sylvia, Leopoldo called her and asked her what she thought of Leon Oswald. She replied that she didn't think anything. He told her he wanted her to remember Leon because he is great. He is kind of nuts, as she recalled. He told us President Kennedy should have been assassinated after the Bay of Pigs, and some Cubans should have done that because he was the one that was holding the freedom of Cuba, actually. Referring to an assassination of the president, he supposedly told the two Cubans, that is, Leon told the two Cubans, it would be so easy to do. Leopoldo then described Leon as an expert shot man and at one time a Marine. Of course, these characterizations do describe Oswald to a certain extent, but of course also this is entirely from the memory and the mouth of one person, Sylvia Odio. There are several supposed implications of the Odio story. If true, Oswald was involved with anti-Castro Cubans, even though he was pro-Castro, and suggesting an assassination of JFK less than 2 months before November 22nd. Such collaboration, if true, hints at a possible conspiracy. It's virtually the only example in which Oswald is placed with another person, much less two people. And of course, if they are talking about an assassination, that's very suggestive of a conspiracy being simply a plot by more than one person to achieve some sort of sinister deed. And if true, it suggests that Oswald was not always the lone wolf generally portrayed, and that he was capable of conspiracy, if true. Problems with the story, however. Oswald could not possibly have been in Dallas later than September 25th because he was seen on a bus traveling from Houston to Laredo in the early morning hours of September 26th. Remember that Odio said he probably came by with the other two on the evening of September 26th or 27th. That was impossible. He was seen on the bus headed to the border in the early morning hours of September 26th, and we know that he crossed into Mexico that day. He did not return to Dallas until October 3rd, and remember, Odio said that he could not have visited her after October 1st because Annie, who saw this man, Leon Oswald, was no longer living with her. Sylvia Odio, to make the plot even thicker, had a psychiatrist, and his name was Dr. Burton C. Einsbruch. She was seeing Dr. Einsbruch before the assassination as well as afterwards. He confirmed that she mentioned the visit of the three men before the JFK assassination, and she even said that one of the men was an Anglo. He could not recall whether she did or did not mention the Anglo's name before the assassination. Only after the assassination did the psychiatrist recall that she mentioned Oswald by name. The timeline was investigated, by the Warren Commission and by others in the years since. We know that Marina, Oswald's wife, and their friend Ruth Payne had been staying with Oswald in New Orleans, but that Marina and Ruth left Oswald behind in New Orleans the morning of September 23rd, when Marina and Ruth returned to Payne's home in Dallas that day. Remember that Oswald was spotted on a bus from Houston to Laredo that left Houston at 2:30 a.m. on September the 26th. We would not know anything about Oswald's whereabouts between the morning of September 23rd and the morning of September 26th if Oswald had not picked up an unemployment check in New Orleans between 8 a.m. and 1 o'clock p.m. on September 25th. This suggests that he stuck around New Orleans until that time on September 25th, sometime between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. So if true, the only possible date he could have been in Dallas was the evening of September 25th. There is another possibility that we'll take a look at in a minute. Oswald could have been in Dallas visiting Sylvia Odio on September 24th, but only if he hightailed it to Dallas with the two Cubans on the morning of September 24th, provided that after the 9 p.m. visit that night, the three men drove back to New Orleans immediately. Had that occurred, Oswald would have been back in New Orleans by the morning of September the 25th, in time to pick up his check. If that was the case, he would have left New Orleans for Houston on a bus, which the Warren Commission presumed he did. So it's entirely possible that Oswald could have made it to Dallas on the evening of September 24th, but he would have had to go back to New Orleans that very night, and then he would have had to take a bus from New Orleans to Houston on September 25th. The problem with that theory is that nobody recognized Oswald or saw Oswald on a bus on September 25th from New Orleans to Houston. The reason that's significant is because on all of the other links in Oswald's trip to Mexico, that is, from Houston to Laredo and into Mexico, and back from Mexico to Dallas, there were passengers on the buses in all those links who remembered seeing Oswald and talked to the FBI after the assassination. But nobody saw Oswald on a bus from New Orleans to Houston on September 25th. That doesn't mean that he didn't take the bus. Maybe he was sleeping the whole time. We just don't know. But that is one of the ingredients in the mystery. But a September 24th visit has other problems. The Cubans told Odio that they were probably leaving Dallas to return to New Orleans the next morning or evening. So if they had gone immediately back to New Orleans after this visit, which they would have had to do in order for Oswald to pick up his check the next morning in New Orleans, that means they were lying with seemingly no purpose to Sylvia Odio, or they changed their mind for some unknown reason. But they claimed that they would not leave Dallas until the next morning or later.